And finally, the climate crisis continues to take a toll on coral reefs. Australia's Great Barrier Reef is suffering from one of the most severe bleaching events on record. Scientists say around 73% of the coral reef has turned ghostly white. The rising ocean temperatures may even lead to the death of these corals. So what in fact is coral bleaching, and how is it affecting the Great Barrier Reef? Our next report explains.
Australia's world-famous Great Barrier Reef is struggling to survive. It's suffering from one of the most severe mass bleaching events on record. In fact, scientists say coral reefs across the world are on the verge of death. But what exactly is coral bleaching? Well, it's a process where corals lose their color and turn white. These marine organisms break up with the algae that give them most of their food and color. The algae live in their tissues to absorb sunlight and nutrients to stay alive. So when a coral expels the algae, its white skeleton can be seen through its translucent flesh. This gives the coral a bleached appearance. These white corals aren't instantly dead. Instead, most of the time they are starving to death. This brings us to the next question. Do all bleached corals die? The answer is no. Corals can survive a bleaching event if the surrounding waters cool and the algae return. It could take them at least 10 to 15 years to make a full recovery. However, scientists have warned that corals have faced harsher and higher temperatures this year. Now, coming back to the Great Barrier Reef. The Australian government says about 73% of the coral cover has bleached. Scientists say this is the 5th mass bleaching event on the World Heritage Site in the last 8 years. They believe that rising ocean temperatures are putting corals under extreme stress.
So the summer of 2024 is now the 5th mass bleaching event to happen on the Great Barrier Reef since 2016. Basically what's happened this summer is that we now have a record number of individual reefs on the Great Barrier Reef exposed to the most prolonged and intense levels of heat stress since records started to be kept from the satellite record back to 1985.
The Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest living structure that is spread across over 344,000 square kilometers. It's home to more than 600 types of coral and more than 1,600 species of fish. The news from the Great Barrier Reef comes at a time when corals around the world are turning bone white. On Monday, the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration confirmed that the world's 4th mass bleaching event is underway.
Significant severe coral bleaching has been reported in at least 54 countries and territories around the globe since February 2023. So it's spatially extensive, occurring, again, in all ocean basins across multiple countries.
This will not only affect the health of oceans, but also the livelihoods of people, food security, and local economies. A quarter of marine life depends on coral reefs for food and shelter. Every year, reefs provide about $2.7 trillion in goods and services. They also help people living in coastal areas by forming a protective barrier against storms and large waves. So how can we save corals? Experts say cutting greenhouse gas emissions is the first step in preventing coral bleaching. Additionally, cleanup programs to remove litter from the reefs would reduce further stress. As for the Great Barrier Reef, the Australian government has already invested about $3.2 billion to protect the threatened species.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.